Hello, dear students. Welcome to What, Why, How, the daily initiative by IAS Baba, where we take up a current topic or an editorial and we try to declutter it in less than 10 minutes. The topic that's chosen for the day is a hot, burning topic, I would say. It's about the one nation, one election. Those who've been reading the newspaper would be constantly seeing news articles on these lines where they're saying one nation, one election sent to joint parliamentary committee. The Rajya Sabha is adopting the motion to nominate certain members. Certain bills have been introduced regarding the one nation, one election. So now we're going to take up this entire issue and just summarize what has been happening in the last 1 week or so that you feel equipped to understand this topic in depth. Now, to get this right, the concept of one nation, one election means that at the same particular time, we will have our union level elections, the state level elections, and the local level elections. As you now know, the elections in India happen at different times. For example, sometimes it would be the general election, sometimes the state election. So much so far, certain international observers say that India is constantly in election mode because one time or the other, a particular state in India would be going through an election, maybe at the local or at the state level, or sometimes it's the general election. The one nation, one election concept basically says that we will have simultaneous polls at the union level and at the state level, and further on we will have it at the local level. Now, this is not a very new idea. Why? Because from the first election that we had till 1951 till 1967, we did have simultaneous polls in our country. But thereafter, when the number of states increased and number of election representatives increased, we had to shift to different timescales. And further on, there were also the instances where there might be a state government may be chosen for 5 years, but they might lose their majority for 5 years. So what happens is they might lose their power maybe in the second or third year, and then the elections would be conducted. So they would keep on continuing for another 5 years. So what happens is the concept of simultaneous elections gradually got lost after your 1967. Now, to re-implement this, there was a previous panel which was held by former President Ramnath Kovind, and they had proposed that holding the state and general elections in India together would be a good idea. It's in this concept that currently they had also suggested that rather than implementing it all together, try to implement the simultaneous election in two phases, where phase 1 would mean having the election dates for Lok Sabha and state assemblies together, and after that is done in a proper manner, maybe align these dates with the local level elections. Now, to put all of this into action is where the happenings of the last 1 week has been. First of all, what happened is there was a motion introduced in your Lok Sabha. Now, the motion is introduced seeking for permission to introduce the bills that are going to deal with one nation, one election. I want you to understand, it doesn't mean that the bill was introduced. It just means that the members of Lok Sabha asked, can we please introduce a bill regarding one nation, one election? And that permission was granted when the Lok Sabha voted through simple majority, and they got the permission to introduce the two bills regarding your one nation, one election. The first bill introduces a certain constitutional amendment to say that you should have joint federal and state elections. Now understand, if this bill has to pass, you will need a special majority, but that is for a later date. Right now, they have just introduced two bills, and this particular bill, which is now looking for the constitution amendment, is called as your Constitution 129th Amendment Bill 2024. The next permission that they got for the next bill was, it aims to introduce assembly polls in Delhi, Puducherry, Jammu and Kashmir along with your general election schedule. And this is the second bill for which they got the permission. And that bill is called as your Union Territories Law Amendment Bill of 2024. Now, Once they got the permission to introduce these two bills were introduced, and now it was met with a lot of resistance. Now, to just summarize this, I would say this Constitution 129th bill, now when we are going to hear a lot of discussions, I want you to understand, because this is a constitution amendment bill, they are planning to say that they should be introducing a new article of 82A. The existing article 83 should be amended, and the existing article 172 also should be amended. So these are all the changes that are proposed in this 129th bill. Nevertheless, this bill, when it was introduced itself, or the permission was given itself, it was met with a lot of protests. And right now what has happened is, now both the bills are given to be considered under a joint parliamentary committee. And this joint parliamentary committee is what got created today. So it has members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. It has members from different parties, both the ruling and opposition, that are going to be part of the joint parliamentary committee. The joint parliamentary committee will look into both the bills and say if it is acceptable to the people. It will be introduced in a very transparent way after it has been brought to discussion by your joint parliamentary committee. And this is your today's news. Now, to understand this in the larger context, you need to know about three major facts. The reason why one nation, one election becomes so important in our country is because there was a stat which said we have spent almost 600 billion rupees in 2019 general elections. And that's a huge amount of money for the different levels of general election. And then in India currently we have almost 900 million eligible voters. And when you bring both of these together, you need to have a method where you can have an optimal election period. It is now being said that when you introduce your simultaneous election, it can boost India's GDP by up to 1.5%. Now, to put it into context, some arguments for your simultaneous election says that, see, the election expenses are going to be drastically reduced because you have a one particular time where all the election is going to happen. So you just need the man force and your resources for that one particular time. Apart from that, the model code of conduct also says whenever you have an election, the model code of conduct normally is applied, and it leads to the time where no new policy can be implemented. And now when India is constantly in the election mode, what happens is at one time or the other, there is a model code of conduct that is applicable in any part of India. Now it is being said that the ruling party has said this model code of conduct has led to almost 800 days of governance being lost in the last 5 years. But once you have one nation, one election, your model code of conduct will be just pertaining to that period where the election is. Finally, when you have one nation, one election, it also is seen to maybe increase the voters' turnout because you just have to spend 1 or 2 days to mark your vote for your particular representatives. Any kind of voters' fatigue that citizens feel because of constant elections will also be less. On the other hand, certain parties, certain observers also feel that when it comes to your con side, maybe it gives an unfair advantage to national parties because when you conduct your union level, state level and local level elections at the same time, any local level issue might get sidelined and only the national issue might be brought into the forefront. Besides, it might also damage democracy because local level representatives who might not have the money or resources to fight election might get hijacked by your union and state agenda. Further, the Election Commission of India also estimates that if you are implementing simultaneous elections, it would require rupees 10,000 crore in every 15 years. Nevertheless, right now, because simultaneous election has been brought into discussion, what has to be considered is maybe at this point, if implemented, one nation and one election will actually create a lot of benefits for the economy of the country, for the governance of the country, etc. But the implementation should be done with careful planning, legislative amendments, and the ability to actually balance any kind of state or local level interest with your national interest. And as the first step to it, creating this joint parliamentary committee for the discussion is a positive step in that direction. Besides, we should also learn from global precedents. Countries like South Africa, etc., have implemented simultaneous election. Maybe learn from these lessons and try to incorporate that in the simultaneous elections of India. I hope now you have understood the complete topic and now you can follow whatever news is coming in the forward days. If you've understood this topic in a clear manner, try answering this question. Now, coming to yesterday's topic, the answer for yesterday's topic is protected area regime. Currently, for today, the question reads as which of the following constitution amendment bills are related to the simultaneous election process in India? If you know the answer of this question, make sure you mark the answer in the comments of this video. I'll be looking forward to seeing your answers. Take care till the time we meet next.